So I've been saying on this channel now for months that I believe Bitcoin is in a bear market. And I've been saying for a while that I believe $74,000 will not hold and we will indeed go below $74,000 on Bitcoin. Many people believe this was a level that Bitcoin would never go below again. People said it was an impossibility for it to go below $74,000. But it has just happened. Bitcoin wicked down to around 72,000. Was it 800 or 72,900, something like that? Let's just double check here the exact level. Oh, actually, it was 72,700, 72,800, something like that, depending on the exchange you're on, obviously. But we just had a very brutal dump on BTC today. It's down 5% today, and it's a little bit above the lows. So you could imagine how much it was down earlier on. If you go into coin market cap, you can see that Bitcoin is up 1.5% in the last hour, but it's down 5% on the day. So that just shows you the extent to which it's been a terrible day for Bitcoin. It's been even worse for the altcoins. Ethereum down 6.2%, and many other altcoins down a similar amount. But I just said it's been worse for altcoins, but when you think about it, typically when Bitcoin dumps 5%, the likes of XRP, the likes of SUI, you're going to see down 10 or 20%. But that hasn't been the case today, actually. So I take back what I just said. It's been a bad day for Bitcoin. It's been a bad day as well for the altcoins, but it's actually not been as bad. If you look here, the coin market cap 20 index, that is down 4.8%. Bitcoin is down 4.9%. So both of them getting beaten up tremendously. But maybe the alts aren't dropping perhaps as much as some people may have expected. But it's been terrible for the alts for the past few months anyway. So it's not like I'm giving them any credit here. So you guys know we predicted the start of a bear market for Bitcoin on the day of the top. You can go back on my live streams and you can see that on the day Bitcoin topped out, I said, I believe this is the day Bitcoin tops, more likely than not. That was the exact way I phrased it. I said, more likely than not, this is the top for Bitcoin. You can go back on my live streams and you can check for yourself. One thing I was clearly wrong about, and I'll be open and transparent about this, was that there was no rotation then into Ethereum and into altcoins. I believe we would see a little bit of rotation into the alts after the Bitcoin top. That didn't happen. So I got the Bitcoin top nailed on to the T correct, but the altcoin rotation I was completely wrong about, and I'll be open about that. Now, either way, I was taking profits on alts on the way up, and my line in the sand, my nail in the coffin, was Bitcoin closing the week below the 50-week moving average. And for me, that was the line in the sand in which I sold my entire remains of my portfolio and exited this market into stablecoins. I managed to leave the market with about a 6x on my money from the amount I put in 2022. And I was up at 1.20x. So I left with much less than I had, but I still left with good gains. And that's the important thing. 90% of people in crypto, maybe even more this cycle, left with losses. And most people are bag holding right now. They didn't have an invalidation point, something which I talked about every single day on this channel. So they had no invalidation point. They weren't taking profits on the way up like I was. I was taking profits on SUI at $5. I was taking profits on Casper at 17 cents, 16 cents, 15 cents. And I was getting called crazy for doing that. You've got to take profits in crypto. Rule number 1, take profits. Rule number 2, do not bag hold. Rule number 3, don't leverage trade with more than 1% of your portfolio. Rule number 4, don't meme coin trade with more than 1% of your portfolio. These are the basics. These are simple things. And if you stick to them, you'll probably have good success in crypto. But too many people have bag held and round tripped altcoins. You can maybe afford to do that with Bitcoin. If you have cash flow, you can keep buying the dips. But unfortunately, if an altcoin's down 99%, it doesn't matter how much cash flow you have. Keep DCAing every week. You're never going to be in profits again because that altcoin will not come back. And a lot of the alts will not come back. Some of them will, absolutely, but a lot of them will never come back. And that's just the reality. And the people who have been DCAing all the way down, trying to get their averages down, would have been much better off having an invalidation point, selling at the invalidation point, and buying back in low. Sell high, buy low. Simple strategy. And for me, this was really quite simple. It was really quite simple. You sell at the 50 week, you buy at the 200 week. I'm yet to see a reason as to why you should have held altcoins below the 50-week moving average on Bitcoin. Altcoins simply just follow Bitcoin. Do you want to go and take a look at the XRP chart right now? It looks terrible. It looks disastrous. This is one of the worst looking charts I've ever seen in my life. This looks awful. Absolutely horrific. And you've got YouTubers out there, foolish, stupid YouTubers, telling people DCA, 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 all the way down. They've been doing this shit. When if they would have just sold when Bitcoin lost the 50-week, they could buy back in now if they wanted with double as much XRP tokens. They could buy double as much XRP tokens right now, probably had they sold at the 50-week. Maybe not exactly, but something like that. That's how much this thing has gone down the gutter. And I'm not recommending people should buy right now, okay? I want to be clear. We could go even lower. I believe we will go lower. But it's just ridiculous. It really is. It was so simple just to sell at the 50-week moving average, cut your losses or cut your profits. If you were buying down here, you were in massive profits like myself, okay? You sold at massive profits. But even if you bought the top, hypothetically speaking, and this is something I said many times on my live streams, I said even if I bought the top and I was a normie and I was a newbie and I wasn't very experienced in crypto, let's just say I bought the top, I still would have sold when we lost the 50-week moving average because it was a clear break of structure, a clear line in the sand, and not doing so, I just think would be crazy. Yeah, maybe you bought Bitcoin at 126 and you had to sell down here at 95, but at least you sold, and you took some money, okay? Maybe you sold at a 20% loss. Well, a 20% loss is better than a 50% loss, like I've been saying for a while. And some of you guys were asking me questions. You were saying, Archie, I'm down 30% on my portfolio. I'm down 30% overall. I put 10K in. Now I've only got 7. What should I do? Should I sell at the 50-week moving average? And I told those people, yes, you should. Obviously, not directly. I can't give financial advice. But I said, I would rather lose $3,000 than lose $10,000, right? So you should sell to protect your capital. Capital preservation is key. And there's never been any story I personally heard of people riding altcoins down in a bear market and being fine about that. All right, maybe they got lucky and Solana was the altcoin they rode down in a bear market, but they felt like shit for a whole year. They felt terrible for a whole year. So what you're best off doing is buying at the points where Bitcoin gets macro oversold, okay, when the sellers get exhausted. And for me, we're not at that point just yet, but we're getting close to it. We just went to 72K. 65K for me, there or thereabouts, is a level where I start to think about getting out of bed for Bitcoin, to buy Bitcoin. Right now, I'm not getting out of bed to buy Bitcoin at 74K. I wasn't getting out of bed to buy Bitcoin at 74K back in April. And I'm not getting out of bed to buy Bitcoin at 74K right now. I believe we're going lower. Polymarket is given an extremely high probability of Bitcoin going into the 60s. If we go and take a look at the Polymarket Bitcoin projections, which usually is extremely accurate, people, talk badly about Polymarket a lot, but For me, it's been perfect in predicting things. And if we go and look at this, it's giving around an 80% chance that Bitcoin goes below 65K this year. 80% chance that Bitcoin goes below 65K this year. That is pretty clear cut, if you ask me. And I'm in complete agreement with that. That is just a $10,000 move down now for Bitcoin. I see it as completely feasible, and we might even see it in Q1, believe it or not. We might even see it in Q1, the way things are looking, the rate Bitcoin is dumping. Now, let's just talk about the imminent short term. Bitcoin came down, wicked to 72K. We had an initial flash crash here, followed by a bit of a bounce, and it's getting bought up right now. I'm going to tell you exactly where Bitcoin needs to close today in order to give me a little bit of confidence that we're not going to continue spiraling down in the imminent short term. Now, either way, I still think we're going lower. It might just not be this month, okay? But if Bitcoin closes below 73,700, I believe that is extremely bearish. Now, why do I say 73,700? I say that because that is the high from March 2024. March 2024, that is the level. So basically, if we go below that high, we essentially break structure on Bitcoin on the higher time frames in terms of just a candlestick basis. If we go from a moving average basis, we broke high time frame structure all the way back in November. And I called that on the channel and said that we're heading a lot lower. But if we go purely from a candlestick perspective, closing below 73,700 today would, for me, look extremely bearish. Now, if we close the week below it, then that almost guarantees an imminent move for me down to the 200-week moving average in the next few weeks, if that happens on the weekly. But even a daily close below it would be extremely bearish. What Bitcoin needs to do is it needs to close above that level, ideally even above 74,500. If it can close where it is right now today, then you can take a little short-term sigh of relief and hope that maybe we're going to have a bit of a rally, maybe back up to 80K or something like that. But man, Bitcoin looks weak. Gotta be honest. I'm still expecting lower prices. It might not happen instantly, but I'm expecting it some point this year. And we've got an awful lot of time to continue that move down to the 200-week moving average. We've got an awful long time left. We're in February. Obviously, the year finishes at the end of December. So we've got a long, long time to wait. I don't necessarily think we have to bottom at the end of the year. We could absolutely bottom a lot earlier. Bitcoin made a high at 74K earlier than expected. So we could certainly make a bottom earlier than expected. Now, I'm not of the belief that the 4-year cycle is dead, but I believe there's certainly cracks within the 4-year cycle. The major crack that I would point to would indeed be the fact that Bitcoin made a new high in March 2024 earlier than the halving. That doesn't normally happen. And the halving had no bearing on Bitcoin's price action in a positive manner. In fact, the halving led to a prolonged 7-month sideways or even down period of price action, proving the halving no longer has a huge bearing on Bitcoin's price action. So for me, although I'm not going to say the 4-year cycle's dead, because it clearly isn't, we had a top in line with it, I've got to say there's certainly some cracks within it, and it wouldn't surprise me if we have another form of deviation from it and we make a bottom a little bit earlier than expected. Everyone's saying Q4. Everyone and their dog and their granny and their cat are all saying Q4 we make a bottom. I don't think it has to be Q4. I don't think it has to be Q4. It might be Q4, but it doesn't have to be. People are saying it with an extremely high degree of certainty. And I don't believe you can put that much certainty on it being Q4. In fact, if I had to be a little bit contrarian here and I had to bet money, I was forced to. Someone said to me, you have to say when you believe the bottom will be for Bitcoin. Will it be Q4 or will it not be Q4? if I had to put money on it, someone forced me, I would say it will not be Q4 this year. I would say it will actually be earlier than Q4. So I'm not of this belief that it's set in stone, it's a foregone conclusion that we have a Q4 bottom. Doesn't have to be the case. Like I said, could very well be the case, but I'm not necessarily fully betting all in on it. But yeah, alts definitely look like they're coming lower. Before I get onto the alts, I do want to give a couple. I do want to mention a couple things with Bitcoin. Okay. So first of all, we have basically the lowest RSI since the bear market bottom almost on Bitcoin. So that is a signal that was certainly very oversold, and maybe a bottom is going to be coming in the next few months. That kind of aligns with my thesis that we may see a bottom potentially in the first half of the year rather than the second half of the year. Another thing, and I noticed this on the charts a few weeks ago, is the similarity between 28K on Bitcoin last cycle and 74K on Bitcoin this cycle. If you look, let's just go backwards here. Just go back in time a little bit and we look at this level, 28K. You have multiple hits of this level, multiple support hits. And then when you lose that level, that's when the real retail capitulation happens. That's when everyone finally concedes that we're in a bear market. And that's when you start to think about going shopping. Right now, there's still an awful lot of people believing we are still very much intact within a bull market. I do not believe that to be the case, but I think about 25 to 30% of the populace believe we're still in a bull market. Maybe 25 to 30%. The vast majority clearly think we're in a bear market, but there's still a percentage which think that we are still in a bull market. Now, when you know the bottom is close is when everyone admits that you're in a bear market. Once every Tom, Dick, and Harry says that we're in a bear market, that's when you know the bottom's coming up close. When everyone admits it. Right now, there's certainly a vocal minority that believe the bull market is still on, okay? So I've just showed you 28K. And once we lost that, that's when everyone admitted we're in a bear market. Now I'm going to show you 74K. 3 points of contact again here. So to me, there's a strong similarity with this level. If we lose this level, that is when I think officially the majority will admit that we are now in a bear market. Once we lose this level. And when that happens, that's when I'm starting to get my stable coins ready. And that's when I start to believe the bottom is going to come up close. Not necessarily a point where I call the bottom, but a point where the bottom is certainly coming close. All right. Anyway, before we get into more, definitely check out the sale on the VIP group. If you use the code bear market at checkout, you're going to save yourself, I believe, 35% off any of the membership options. Whenever I buy into this market, they will be the people who get to know first. I'll be alerting all of those members as to the exact altcoins I'm buying. Also, another thing I'll be doing is this week putting out a full document guide to my VIP members, which they're going to get for free, of every single altcoin and essentially the ones that are on my radar. So every altcoin that's on my radar, they're going to get access to a document. Let's say there's 20 altcoins. You'll be getting the reasons why I'm bullish on them. And you'll essentially have the knowledge of the alts, which I'm looking to personally get into. Now, let's just say I put 20 altcoins into that document. Doesn't mean I'm going to buy every single one of them. But it means they've made my radar, they've made my watch list, and there's a strong chance that I'm going to buy them. I'm at least considering them for when I buy back into the market. So a lot of you guys have been asking me, when I get back in, which alts will I be buying? Will I be buying back into Sui? Will I be buying back into Casper? Will I go into Say? You'll find out by joining the VIP and having access to that document. You'll see the exact list of altcoins that I'm targeting and the reasons why. So hit the link in the description, join the VIP, use the code BEARMARKET at checkout, and join the most active Discord group in the crypto community. I'm in there every day, voice chats every day. And yeah, it's definitely the place to be. Also, check out the link to Blowfin, link down below. Sign up to that and deposit some USDT. That is the exchange I personally use. And, you know, I'm looking to build up at some point soon, not just yet, but looking to build up a long-term leverage long position on Bitcoin. Low leverage, maybe 5x. A leveraged long position that I can scale into on BTC. That's something I didn't do last cycle, and I kind of regretted it because I was buying Bitcoin at 15 and 16K on spot. But had I just bought a separate bag on 5x leverage, I would have made insane gains. All right. Because my average on BTC was $15,900. I basically bought the bottom and I bought it publicly on this channel. Now, that was like a 7 or 8x on Bitcoin. Basically an 8x on Bitcoin. So I made an 8x on Bitcoin this cycle. But the thing is, that was on spot. If I used just 2x leverage, I would have made a 16x. If I used just 2x leverage, would have made 16 times my money. If I used 10x leverage, I would have made 80 times my money. Now, obviously, I probably wouldn't have used 10x. 10x is maybe a little bit too high. But 5x, something like that, I think is a very reasonable amount of leverage, especially when you're getting close to the 200-week moving average. And if you can buy back in, you can buy in lower and lower your average. I think it's a very reasonable strategy. I know certain people did it, and they got tremendous discounts. Well, not discounts, but tremendous gains on Bitcoin from buying it at those discounted rates of 15, 16, 17K. There were people buying down here on 10x leverage, and they made like an 80x a cycle just on Bitcoin. So if you imagine buying the bottom, how profitable it can be on spot, imagine how profitable it could be on like 2, 3, 4, 5x leverage. Now, obviously, you should have a low percentage of your portfolio in leverage, but still, it could be great profits. The majority should obviously be spot. That goes without saying. But Bitcoin's creeping up a little bit here. We're seeing a little bit of a short-term bounce. Let's go on the 1 minute just to see what's going on in real time. So we had this bottom after a huge pullback. Now we're starting to get a little bit of a bounce, 76,200 almost. So that's obviously positive, but yeah, I'll say it again. We could have a bounce here, but I still believe Bitcoin is going to that 200-week moving average. It's only a matter of time, and I'm not ready to buy into this market just yet. I'm not personally ready, but it's good to see a little short-term bounce. But it was bound to happen. I mean, did you guys see how much we were down today? We were bound to have a little short-term bounce. It's nothing special, nothing crazy. Anyway, I'm going to get into some of the questions. We've got Jake in the chat. How's it going? Hit the likes on the stream, by the way. Are you waiting to buy spot no matter what until the 200? Curious, as most alts are down 40 to 50% from November when you sold. Seems like some alts are bottoming compared to Bitcoin. Yeah, good point, man. And thanks for mentioning that. You know, not enough people give me credit. I sold and I told people that this was going to be the point where Bitcoin's going to enter a bear market. On cue, on point, I told people that. And I actually saved people loads and loads of money. but I don't get enough credit for that. So I'm glad that you realize it. Um, but yeah, I'm not buying into the altcoin market until we get a bit closer to the 200 week. Now, we don't have to hit it to the T for me to buy, but we just need to be a little bit closer. And if you are in my VIP group, which is linked down below, and you can use the code BEARMARKET at checkout, then you're going to see exactly when I buy. So you'll get alerted when I buy, and you're going to see the exact amount that I buy as well, like the exact percentage of my portfolio that I allocate into different altcoins. And man, if you were in my group in 2022, 2023, you would have made a shit ton of money because I literally timed the bottom on Bitcoin and on altcoins. I timed the bottom, and I was buying in to Bitcoin between 15 and 16K. And I was buying into altcoins when Bitcoin was between 15 and 30K. That's where I deployed the vast majority of my money. So if you're in my group back then, you're a guaranteed millionaire essentially. Even with like 20K, 50K, you probably become a millionaire just from those gains in the first like 2 years from the bottom, or first year from the bottom, actually. I 10x'd my money on altcoins at in the first few months of the bull run starting because those AI coins went crazy. So yeah. Bottom's probably Q3, says Philip. It's very obvious that it's going to be Q4, but that's what makes me think it might not be Q4. Mr. Crazy Coach says, you are the number one go-to guy for me, and I watch all your videos. My plan is to wait until 65K to purchase Bitcoin. I have roughly $35,000 in stablecoins now. Is it wise to go 100% in on BTC? So you don't have to go 100% in, but maybe 80% or 90% if you're very risk adverse. Personally, I'm not going to go more than 50% in on Bitcoin. I'll probably go 50% Bitcoin, 50% altcoins, because that's what I did for the majority of last cycle, and it seemed to work pretty well. At one point, I was up on my portfolio overall 20x at one point. But I rode down a lot of the gains, unfortunately, but at least I still left with huge gains. But Bitcoin was certainly the backbone to my portfolio. Are we in a time of hard assets? Probably yes. At least a decent percentage of your portfolio should be in hard assets, ideally ones that produce passive income. So real estate, are you talking about? Because that's maybe the only hard asset I can think of other than land that produces passive income. Gold and silver don't. Yeah, I own real estate. I own a good few properties in Dubai. But honestly, I'm probably done for the time being buying real estate. I'm looking to scale into crypto now because you want to buy things that are down. And I've been in stablecoins for a while. I've been in stablecoins for multiple months. And we're finally starting to get to a point where I'm starting to get my stablecoins ready, starting to put in limit orders for Bitcoin. We're not at that point where it's buy time just yet for me, but we're getting to that point soon. And everyone's going to be waiting for 30K. I'm telling you, every single person's going to be waiting for 30K, and it probably won't happen. Just like last bear market, everyone was waiting for 10K, and it didn't happen. So be careful. Once this number starts to spread around and everyone's waiting for that fancy number of 30K or 25K or whatever the number is, every single YouTuber and every guru and everyone's shilling, that number probably won't happen. The bottom will probably be a little bit higher than that because people front run it. So be very careful once everyone starts announcing this same bottoming figure. Be very careful with that. Ben Shaw with a $2 says, do we have to wait for 2029 for the next bull run? I personally don't think you have to wait until 2029 because look at what happened in 2024 for Bitcoin. 2024 was actually, in many ways, a better year for altcoins than 2025. So it might be 2027, it might be 2028 where we see incredible gains. And look, if we form a bottom on Bitcoin in the early part of this year, we could start to see really good gains on altcoins coming out of this year in the second half of the year, going into 2027. Just like we did at the very beginning of 2023. We saw incredible gains at the very beginning of 23. I remember because I was buying AI coins. That was when the whole AI trend started to catch a bid, both in crypto and in the stock market with the launch of ChatGPT. So it's good to see you in the stream, Ben Shaw. He's a regular member. And he always drops a little donation to get his question answered. So appreciate you being here, man. It could be multiple cycles to recover from the COVID money print before we see a loose monetary policy. Yeah, and especially with Warsh now as the Fed chair, he is certainly not someone who wants to loosen monetary policy when it comes to QE, right? He's quite restrictive when it comes to that. So yeah, he wants to lower rates, but he's very opposed to QE. And during 2008, he was actually arguing against QE as a solution. So Warsh is not the type of guy to come in and print loads of money. And that's kind of why you saw a big sell-off with the metals, was because people are essentially getting to grips with the fact that Trump's appointee was not someone who's going to come and pile a load of money into the system. Now, of course, when it comes to the Fed, it's not a dictatorship. It's a board or whatever you call it. It's a committee or it's a board, I think is the right way of calling it. But it's a group of people, right? And they have to come to some general consensus. There's a vote that each person has. It's not a dictatorship from the chair. So although Warsh might be heavily opposed to QE, that does not necessarily mean that there'll be no QE, because all the other members might be in favor of it, right? But obviously the chair has some power when it comes to the direction of policy. They certainly can set the tone. Just like, in a sense, the president isn't a dictator of the US, but he has a large degree of power when it comes to setting the tone with legislation and with governmental policy, right? Has to go through Congress, but the president very much can move the needle with things and can set the tone. It's the same when it comes to the Fed. Cesaro Gamer, how's it going? Doing a swing trade on Solana and ETH will most likely pay off in a couple days or weeks. Clarity Act. Yeah, the Clarity Act, I think, may have some positive effect, but it's not something for me which makes me really excited. I got to be honest. I heard a YouTuber was saying that the Clarity Act is what's going to lead to a new all-time high on Bitcoin. Never heard so much nonsense in my life. What a ridiculous thing to say. You're going to be seriously brain dead if you think the Clarity Act coming out right now would instantly take Bitcoin to a new all-time high. That's ridiculous. One act is just going to send us to 127K instantly. What a stupid thing to say. Utterly ridiculous. Someone sent me a clip of a YouTuber was saying that. Just pathetic. It's just crazy. The amount of clowns out there, people just spewing absolute garbage, is ridiculous. The Clarity Act will send us to a new all-time high instantly, this guy was saying. What a ridiculous. It's almost as crazy as the guy. Does anyone remember the active viewers on the channel? Does anyone remember the guy who was saying that GTA 6 will be the thing that takes Bitcoin to a new all-time high? Does anyone remember that? GTA 6 will be the big catalyst for crypto that will send Bitcoin to a new high. It's almost as ridiculous as that. But I'm not denying the Clarity Act is quite bullish, but I don't think it's going to really move the needle too much. Might give us a partial relief bounce, but that's about it. I mean, if you look at the RSI and the weekly on Bitcoin, it's getting very oversold. So we're probably going to get a bounce soon. But man, I was looking at this XRP chart earlier and I had to post it on X because this genuinely looks awful. You have the huge pump, dump to the mid-range, another pump, rejection at the same point, essentially, creating a double top. What's going to happen next? Probably a big move down, unfortunately. That's what always seems to happen. When you have these big patterns on a big time frame, these McDonald patterns, the M pattern, the dreaded M pattern on a macro chart, it looks horrible. Audio not working, says Trey. Sir says the audio is working fine over here. Yeah, it should be fine. Maybe it's just one guy needs to turn his volume up. But let me know if there's any issues. How much is the VIP right now? So if you use the code bear market at checkout, when you do the promo code, you're going to save, I think, 35% off. So whatever it is right now, take 35% off that, and that's how much it will be. So you got a nice little bear market discount right now. Some say the bottom is in here at 74K, but I don't believe it. I mean, we've already shown the fragility of that level. Like, we've already dipped just below it to 72. So, I'm not too convinced that that was the floor. I've got to be honest with you. I personally think the 200-week moving average is the first point where you could consider calling the bottom, but we haven't even hit that yet. And I'm going to continue to update you guys every single stream on these major moving averages because I think they are so important. It's important that you guys get a rundown constantly on where we are in relation to them. But yeah, guys, starting to lose my voice, so we'll have to wrap up the stream here, but definitely join the VIP group. I'll be letting you guys know exactly when I'm buying back into this market. I've got a ton of money in stables right now, and I cannot wait to go and buy multiple Bitcoins, buy loads of Solana, loads of Sui, Hyperliquid, potentially, Asta potentially, and loads of other coins that I have on my radar. I'll be letting you guys know exactly when I buy and exactly which coins I buy, and it could be sooner than we think. So join the VIP group. You're going to get daily voice chats. You're going to get alerts from me. I called the top on this channel at 126 publicly on a live stream. And since then, we've clearly been in a bear market and people are only just starting to get to grips with it. Once everyone believes we're in one, that's when we know it's buy time. Appreciate you all watching. Hit a like if you enjoyed. Share the stream with someone who could get some value from it. Maybe someone who's listening to some ridiculous YouTuber calling for all-time highs instantly from the Clarity Act. And yeah.